Welcome to the Intimate Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra Stockwell. I'm a physician and an intimate marriage expert, and I specialize in showing couples how to have incredible, passionate relationships. I've been married for 25 years. My husband and I have 4 children and full professional lives, and we've created an amazing relationship. If you want to deepen your understanding of your own relationship and learn to access new heights of emotional, sensual, and erotic intimacy, you're in the right place. I will show you how. Now, let's dive in. And I am so excited to dive right into a conversation with Nick and Dr. Elaine Stageberg. Actually, is it Stageberg? I should have asked that before.
Stageberg. You were pretty close the first time. That's good.
Okay, Stageberg. A little German influence there, I'm guessing.
That's right.
Okay. Well, anyway, I am just so excited to be speaking with the two of you because you've been married for 10 years. And from what I've seen online and read in your biography, which I'll read a little bit in a moment, you really have created uncompromising intimacy and an intimate marriage in the way that I define it. And interestingly, there are so many patterns and rules that people follow with dysfunction. And when creating a really successful marriage, I think it's pretty unique and creative every time. I obviously teach principles to help people do that, but any couple is going to do it very uniquely. And I'm really excited to hear how Nick and Elaine have done that. Let me just say that they have been married for 10 years, are parents to 3 amazing children, ages 6, 4, and 18 months, with another baby on the way. Congratulations. How far along are you, Elaine?
About 14 weeks. We're having our 3rd little boy.
Oh my goodness. I have a daughter and 3 boys as well.
Super fun. We're looking forward to it.
Beautiful. Well, that's just wonderful. Having grown their real estate investments to reach financial freedom, Nick and Elaine left their respective careers to jointly run their real estate investment business, Black Swan Real Estate. One of the most common questions they get is, how do you work with your spouse every day? And let's just jump right in with that question. Although I'd love to hear if there's anything that you want to add. Nick, anything you want to add to the introduction I've given?
No, I think you've got it perfect there.
Okay. What about you, Elaine?
I would just say that a lot of people find us or come to us via real estate investing, particularly for physicians. And after we kind of talk about that, it's what in medicine we call like the doorknob question. At the end of the call, one of us might say, any other questions? And we're expecting they might say, how do I get a pre-approval letter? Or what exactly is a cap rate? And instead, they almost kind of lower their voice and they're like, how are you two so happy? Or how are you so in love? Or don't you get sick of each other working together all day and then with the family all night? And so it's a topic we love to talk about. We think that the strength of our marriage and the strength of our relationship and our communication is really what drives all of our success. It's what has created our real estate success, what has created the success we have in our family. And just have kind of found this like interesting route to talking to people. I think it's, because talking about money and investment is an intimate conversation as well. And so that's just like a natural door to then they'll say, tell me about your marriage or tell me how you work with your spouse. And so it's fun for us to talk about.
Absolutely.
I'd really like to get specific about that because I definitely believe that, I'm going to quote from a part of your bio I didn't read yet, that creating a close, vibrant, loving, intimate marriage is the ingredient that is the ticket to the rest of success in life. And I think that's something that for people who aren't in a really fulfilling, nourishing, intimate marriage, that's sort of a vague concept. Would
Yes.
each of you drill it down? Like, what does that really mean that having a great marriage fuels your other success?
Sure. So yeah, let's get very detailed very quickly. Dive right in here. Yeah, in my opinion, as a man, having a woman in my life that wants me to go out and conquer the world is this limitless source of power and energy that is unrivaled in the context of my personal human experience. It's okay to go out and do great things. It's incredibly elating to go out and do great things when my wife sends me to do so and celebrates my return. And then to be able to go on that journey together just kind of multiplies that exponentially. And I think that, I think a lot of people, unfortunately, their experience of marriage, of relationship is, I think a lot of people would say, yep, my marriage is like a 5 out of 10. It's like, it's not bad. Like, I'm not married to someone who's doing drugs or, has other, big problems like that. But, it's not amazing. And when you really lean into your relationship, into your intimate relationship, into your marriage, and tap into that source of power, you can do anything. Like, you don't need to eat, you don't need to sleep. Like, you just are driven in a very possessed way that nothing else compares to that.
I would echo all of that. I think Nick and I kind of lived in kind of the camp of where, maybe, so we've been married 10 years. Maybe 3 years ago, if someone had asked about, kind of how's the state of your marriage, I think both of us might have given it, a solid 7 at worst, probably an 8 or maybe an 8.5. And we thought that was, all we ever,
as good as it gets.
As good as it, is all we ever wanted or all we ever needed. And then we really started focusing on our marriage. I liked that you used the word nourishment there a few minutes ago. We use a similar word. We use the word energy. We really started focusing on our marriage as a source of energy, the same way like food or water or sleep or sunshine are energy. And much like, if it's the middle of the afternoon and you're kind of feeling a little tired, you might step outside to get some sun and then come in and feel more energized to finish the day. We think of our marriage as a source of energy. And now our marriage is, 10 or 100-fold better than it was just a few years ago. And it was already pretty good a few years ago. And so now we're in this like place of exploration of, if we could 10x our marriage in the last 2 years, we've been married 10 years, but the good Lord willing, maybe we have 50 years ahead of us, or maybe even more, depending on, lifespan and medical technology. What if we somehow could 10x it every few years or even every decade? Like, how much limitless potential could we get out of this thing? And it's just such a place of joy and playfulness and just all of that feeling of, when you're hiking in a place that you've never been or doing something you've never done, that feeling of exploration, that is definitely how we think of our marriage, of how much goodness can we get out of this if we spend the time investing in it and growing it as much as we can.
So 2 years ago, more or less, you made this very profound, energizing pivot. What precisely did you do? It's the kind of thing that sounds magical and fantastic and real to me, I'll add. But will you share more like a recipe, what someone could do in order to make this pivot in their own marriage?
Sure. Yeah. I think Elaine and I have always kind of leaned into our marriage and our relationship. And, I have a bachelor's degree in ministry. My wife is a Mayo Clinic trained psychiatrist. So we're very like mindset oriented people or whatever. But there was definitely a huge moment when we went to our first Tony Robbins event. We went to Unleash the Power Within, a little over 2 years ago. And then we went to Date with Destiny a few months after that, which is another Tony Robbins event. And the stuff is incredibly simple, but it's stuff that people just don't do. So like you have to have like 2, deliverables or whatever from UPW. And, one of my 2 deliverables was, like Elaine has always proposed changes or improvements to our lifestyle. She's, oh, well, let's try being vegan for a month, or let's go, there's things. And our entire marriage, I fought those things. I don't know, just a sense of independence, fearing being controlled, all sorts of different feelings about that we kind of explored at UPW. And so that was one of my resolutions, was I would no longer fight Elaine on her lifestyle suggestions for our marriage and for our family, because she's pretty smart and she's usually right about these things. And I was just being kind of immature to fight those things. And one of her deliverables from UPW, how was it phrased? It was basically to allow me to be me and to be proud of who I am. We're both pretty big personalities, and I think most of our lives we've been trying to ease off, to hold back, to be quiet, to slow down for other people. Elaine has just kind of unleashed me to be me, for better or worse, and certainly for better, I think, since then. And, so we could spend hours talking about this stuff. But yeah, certainly those Tony Robbins events were really critical turning points in our marriage. And those are just two items right there where you do some kind of thought work, and it's like, well, what are the things that bother you, that shut down your energy in your relationship? Okay, just do the opposite of those things. It might be scary or feel uncomfortable, but if every day Elaine's trying to make us better, and I'm persistently fighting that, and every day Elaine is trying to make me a better person, and somehow that makes me feel like she's not proud of the person I am, we're just shutting each other down. And so we lean into the people that we are, and magnify each other. And it's really scary, right? It's kind of like a surrender of identity, kind of a you have to have like a death of ego to do those kind of things. But then on the other side, it's pretty liberating.
Yeah, I echo everything Nick said there. And then at that second event we went to, Date with Destiny, that's a deeper version of that first event, Unleash the Power Within. I mean, I'll keep it abbreviated here. Like Nick said, we could talk about these things for a long time, but we left that event. So just to kind of put this into context, so we had been married 8 years. We were both professionals, well-trained, in our 30s. We had 2 children at that point. I was pregnant with our 3rd child. So very much our own people. And we left that event deciding that we would always take complete responsibility for the feelings of the other person. And that might sound a little crazy, right? If I play music too loud and Nick says, that's too loud, it's annoying me or giving me a headache, I could say something like, well, that's your choice to think that, or you could go to a different room, or I think it sounds like lovely music. And instead, I surrender to that to say, I am most happy when you are most happy. And so I will do what I need to do right now to bring both of us happiness. And that's obviously a very simple example, but when 2 people who are whole, healthy, committed, separate beings come together and say, I am going to take complete responsibility for you, and you are going to take complete responsibility for me, there is so much magnetism and energy and just light and all of those words that it has just completely changed our marriage in the last 2 years, and has deepened our communication, deepened our connection with each other, deepened our physical intimacy, the way we parent our children, the way we run our business, the way we lead our team and our staff. And it comes from a surrender to each other, a surrender of ego, and saying that we belong to each other and we're committed to creating the best life possible together, instead of as these kind of 2 separate beings that happen to be married.
It's incredible to hear the 2 of you speak. To my ear, it's not just that the words are true, but listening to each of you express them, it's so clearly the truth of your experience. And I'd love to know, how is it that in taking 100% responsibility for one another's experience and adjusting to honor it, life gets bigger, louder, more vibrant, and technicolor instead of smaller, more bland, more neutral, more quiet, which is what often happens when people feel like they need to or choose to adjust to accommodate their spouse's comfort.
Yeah, I think you phrase that so perfectly. I think we think about accommodation, compromise. There has to be less of me in order for there to be more of you. And I think that's probably why I don't know, I fought my wife on lifestyle changes, or she fought, kind of my personality in some ways for so many years. And the opposite is true. So here's a really concrete example. So yesterday we had day before yesterday, we had a really long day of work. We had some investors coming into town, and they were visiting us for a couple of days, looking at, we're buying an apartment building together. So they, fly in and see it and everything. So it's, you have a whole work day, and then you have a second work day of all the work you didn't get done that day because you were spending the whole day with these people in from out of town. And how do you prioritize your to-do list? So, okay, I've got time to focus on my to-do list. The first thing I did was I asked my wife, is there anything that's at the top of your radar? Is there anything that I can take off your plate right now? Because she was going home, taking care of the kids. I was settling into Workday 2.0 here. And, several years ago, I would be willfully oblivious maybe to my wife's to-do list, to the things that were on the top of her list, and be thankful. Okay, I can finally focus on myself. I can finally take care of my to-do list. I'm so grateful for that. But that's really kind of short-sighted, and I didn't even realize it until I realized it. But the things that are on my wife's to-do list are probably on my to-do list, right? There's probably a lot of overlap between those to-do lists.
And not just because we work together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This applies to anybody. Like you go home after work and you have kind of a honey-do list or a domestic to-do list or whatever. And it's kind of like the last thing you want to do is the thing for your partner. But the thing that your partner wants done, it's probably somewhere on your to-do list, right? And if it's at the top of their list, it's probably not at the bottom of your list. And so by asking my wife, what can I do for you? I'll say that again. What can I do for you? I can meet her needs and meet my needs, right? So this thing that I probably would have done anyway, I still get to do it, but I get to do it for her. I get to serve her. And now I'm taking a load off her shoulders. I'm taking, taking this burden out of her backpack that she's carrying. So I get kind of extra credit for that, so to speak, emotionally, spiritually. And she is so thrilled that I would even ask. And she said, no, there's nothing that I need to do.
I wish there was a video for this little part, because I am just like smiling ear to ear, like as though we've, been in love for like 2 weeks instead of 10 years. But when I say energy, like I get that text message and I instantly think, what can I do for this man that is working so hard for our business and so hard for our family and so hard for our future? What can I do? Can I, maybe after I pick up the kids on the way home, I swing by and get him something to eat and drop it off at the office, or grab him a coffee, or send him a little love note back, or a little love picture back. And so it's just this like, and I can like feel that even though he's at the office and I'm in the car, that he's thinking about me. And I know that he can feel that even though I'm at the car at the school and he's at the office, and I'm thinking about him. And I literally responded with, oh, I don't need you to do anything except whatever is going to give you the most peace today. So take care of your to-do list and know that I'm taking care of everything else. And so it's really like no extra work.
That's right.
Neither of us are doing anything truly extra except thinking about and offering to the other that we would do it if either of us needed it or wanted it. Yep.
And then I searched through my inbox and actually found the thing that I suspected was probably the thing most present on Elaine's mind, and went and did that thing and like reached out to her about it. Hey, this is done. And oh, well, thank God. I'm so glad you took care of that. And again, like maybe that was like number 10 on my to-do list, but I knew it was probably number 1 on hers. and I was going to get all 10 done in the next, 6 hours of work. So I might as well get hers done first. And it just gives us energy. It's so much more enjoyable to do a task in service of someone else than to do a task in service of yourself. If I'm doing it for myself, well, I get a little bit of satisfaction that I've done a thing I want to do. If I do something for my wife that I would have done anyway, well, then I get to please my wife in addition to doing something for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of questions, and I think I want to have you back again because what you've just described also, I'll just tell you one of my questions. Maybe you can give me a quick answer to this. How do you use conflict to create more energy as well?
So
that's a good question.
That's a good one.
I'm curious to hear what Nick has to say. I would say that in the let's say like the first 7 or 8 years of our marriage, when things were what we thought were pretty good, like we didn't realize there was this next level. One of the things that we thought was really good about our marriage was we didn't have a lot of conflict. And now when I look back, I realize that we never outright ignored each other or anything like that, but there was a lot of sidestepping or a lot of, I know you feel that way, but I don't. Nick might have said something like, these things often centered around the masculine need for freedom and the feminine need for safety. I would say that was kind of a core thing of ours, that we lived in a safe world. We lived in a safe house. We had healthcare. Our children were healthy. And so Nick was like, well, you're just totally safe. I don't know what you're talking about. And I would express to him, I need to know that you are there at all times. And I would use these like psychiatry words of, I need to feel this like deep, secure attachment to you. And he would just like nod his head like, okay, I'm not dying and you're not dying and the children aren't dying. Can we go to bed now? And I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. And kind of the opposite would be true for him. And I thought that was like, okay. And now we'll just get into it of what does that mean to you? Explain that again to me. Or is there a different way you can help me understand that? Or, even saying very simple things like, I don't quite understand what you're saying, but I know it's very important to you.
Yes.
And therefore it's important to me. And I will never stop trying to figure it out. It may take me an hour, a day, a year, a lifetime, but if it's important to you, I'm going to keep trying to figure it out and keep doing what I can to move closer to you.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear what your take on conflict is. That's mine.
I think that's pretty good. I think most couples, they try to avoid conflict at any cost, really. Okay, we've got this problem. What is the lowest effort way for us to not have to confront this problem? How can we be not talking about this and doing something else? And we really lean into that confrontation and we're energized for it. I've got a fun story. I guess I could give an example. So a few years ago, my wife one day said, I want to get snow tires on our car. And at the time, that was like a significant, financial concern for us. It was like $1,000 or something to get nice snow tires for our car. And I said, okay, I think that's stupid, but I want to honor your desire. So I'm going to do an actuarial analysis. I'm going to do some research and find out whether or not it's actually a good idea to get snow tires on the car. And then I did some research and I'm like, oh, babe, congratulations. I did some research and it turns out that snow tires do significantly reduce the odds of getting into a car accident, and when you're in a snowy climate. We live in Minnesota. And so congratulations, you won and I lost. And aren't you so happy? And she was, of course, furious and just said, oh, to hell with it. Don't get the tires, whatever. And then
and since we are on the intimate marriage podcast, like, let's be like very clear that does not lead to good sexual energy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great. My husband
yes.
agreed with me after looking at statistics. That's hot.
Right. And when you have these little conflicts in your marriage, they sap your energy if you don't confront them. Like, you're hanging out, you're having dinner, but somewhere in the back of both of your minds is the fact that you have this disagreement or this conflict that you aren't talking about, that you aren't on the same page about. After I don't know how many months, it was after a Tony Robbins event, I finally had this like light bulb go off, and I went back to my wife and said, you need to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you want snow tires. You want to do something to feel more safe when we're driving in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
I love you. I know how important it is to you to feel safe. I would do anything to make you feel safe. I would go to the ends of the earth to make you feel just 1% more safe. Would it make you feel more safe if we got snow tires on the car? I don't care how much it costs. I don't care if it's a marginal improvement at best. How you feel, if it would make you feel better to have snow tires, that's what I want. And it was a tearful moment. And at which point she said, I don't care if we get snow tires. Like, just you wanting to get the snow tires is all I really ever wanted. And that was something that, I don't know, I think about that moment a lot to this day, almost daily probably. So leaning into the needs of your partner to resolve conflict, it gives you tap into this well of limitless energy. And when you don't do that, when you try to merely solve the problem or avoid the problem, not talk about the problem, it saps your energy. So conflict can absolutely be a deep well, a deep reservoir of energy if you can lean into your partner's needs.
Yeah, I describe that kind of relationship when you're not facing the conflict as conflict-free, passion-free relationships. And as far as I'm concerned, I agree with what you've said, Nick, that most people avoid conflict, and we have really an epidemic of conflict-free, passion-free relationships. And it's absolutely one of the things that motivates me with this podcast, so that I can talk with people who have, it's not that it's conflict full, but authenticity full, passion full relationships, because we all need to hear more about that. And I'm just immensely grateful that you've both shared so generously on the intricacies and also the global impact. And I have this deep appreciation for something that I heard Elaine say on a video on your real estate business website, Black Swan Real Estate, where Elaine says, and I'm quoting, "We say real estate investors because that's what people understand, but really we're investing in relationships." And I'd love to give you an opportunity to say something about your real estate business if you want to. And whatever it is that you say, I just feel it's going to be so powerful and poignant after talking about your marriage in a way that really illustrates what investing in a relationship can truly look like.
Yeah, I think that sort of mindset deepening or shifting in our business happened around the same time that it happened in our marriage. And again, that's an example of, you've heard the word energy and those sorts of things many times, that, we had been investing in real estate the entire time we had been married, and we had done quite well, but we really shifted our focus from putting together a deal, and we had always focused on win-win deals and profitable deals and those sorts of things, and instead shifted our focus to stewardship of how can we steward our resources as we were working with other investors. How could we really steward their resources? How could we steward the resources of housing in a neighborhood, in a community for residents, tenants living in those properties and those homes, and doing so in a way that brings more to everyone, and really recognizing and honoring that, much like a marriage is not just about, showing up every day and maybe making some big decisions together and living together and, maybe sharing a checkbook and sharing a few children. It's about being bigger, better people together. And real estate investing is the same way. And particularly when we're working with other investors, that it's not just money that they're entrusting us with, it's their freedom. It's they spent time and effort earning that money and have hopes and dreams tied to the future return of that money. And we can bring all this magic and goodness to that and do so in a way that's very good for the community and the people living in those homes as well. And so just taking all of the same stuff that we were doing and learning and exploring in our marriage and applying that to our business. And our business has grown probably 20 or 50 fold in that same time. So as our marriage has strengthened, so has our business, and it's all the same core ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just before we jumped on this podcast here, I was on a call with an investor, and we sent out a deal to our group, and he was the first to respond, and he was excited about it, but I could tell just by a little bit of hesitation in his voice that he had some reservation there somewhere. And the me of just a few years ago would say, okay, well, yep, let's move forward. And the me of today, stepping into that conflict, kind of said, okay, well, we've talked through all this, and you said you're ready to move forward, but I sense just a hint of hesitation there. Can you tell me about that? I want to make sure you are 11 out of 10 excited about moving forward with this thing. And then he explained to his attorney, said this thing, and maybe you should wait until he hears from the attorney. Okay, no problem. We can move on to the next investor. We've got a lot of investors who want to do this deal. So your spot's not going anywhere. Like, you can do the next deal after you've had a chance to talk to your attorney. And he was so relieved that I was the person to kind of expose that insecurity or that hesitation, and kind of give him permission to have some cold feet, and thank God that I did, because maybe he would get further along in the deal and then say, oh no, I'm really sorry, I should have said something sooner, or more likely he would do the deal, but always have this little hesitation in the back of his mind. Oh, I wish maybe I had waited for the next one or something. So, just really lean. It's a very close relationship that you have with investors and with tenants. And so really honing in on those relationships with all these same tools has allowed us to exponentially grow our business. We just had a group of investors visit us. All we did was just kind of hang out with them for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a very large, seven-figure deal with us. It's important that they trust us. And so, we went out to restaurants and looked at some properties, but mostly just talked about family and relationships, and actually about our marriages quite a bit, and just building relationship with these people. And that's what we focus on. And if you build really strong, powerful relationships with people that are just saturated with trust and transparency, you're going to be really successful in whatever you do.
Yeah. Much like I think of children get to practice their social skills on the playground, and then they grow up and use those skills in their friendships and their professional lives. I think for adults, we have this really amazing relationship that we can practice those skills in a marriage with someone that we live with someone that knows us so deeply, so intimately, so vulnerably, and then hone them in that relationship and then use them in the rest of the world. And that is such an opportunity to, again, use the marriage as a way to become the best version of yourself and then give that version to the world, because the marriage is the safe place to grow that best version and then give it to the world.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, it's really good. And my final question to each of you, which I ask all of my guests, is, because I deeply believe that relationship is the ultimate vehicle for personal growth, I'd love to ask you, Elaine, what have you learned about yourself as a result of being married to Nick?
That is a really good question. So much. So tough one for me to answer kind of quickly like that. We've been married, much of my adult life. We got married when I was 25. I'm 35 now. I would say I have learned through kind of co-exploration how important legacy is. I don't know if I would have come to that on my own, or if life had been such that I had been in a different marriage. I don't know if I would have come to that on my own, but being in this marriage with this person, if I was ranking my values, I rank legacy as number one, which is a big part of the reason we want to have this big family and we keep having more children, growing our business, starting our family foundation and our charitable giving. So through this marriage, through this relationship with Nick, I have learned that legacy is a big value of mine.
And Nick, what have you learned about yourself as a result of being married to Elaine?
Yeah, this is a tough question. This is a good one. I think that, our spouse is kind of the ultimate mirror that we have into our own soul. It's hard to be truly self-aware and to be self-reflective, and so your spouse is probably your closest relationship that you have in your entire life, and if you have a good relationship and a strong partner who is willing and able to be honest with you, probably your greatest opportunity to learn about yourself, which is just a way of me stalling because I'm still struggling to come up with a good answer there. I mean, me being on this podcast.
You're stalling with the truth.
Yes. Yeah. Me being on this podcast, me going to, like we mentioned, Tony Robbins events and doing, thought work and stuff is certainly something that Elaine has led in our relationship. I've always been like a personal growth, personal development person. But Elaine, much more so. And, the day that we got married, I had, like a little toast and stuff. We wrote our own vows, and, I said that, you helped me become the best version of myself. And I had no clue just how true that would be 10 years on. So, I certainly have a hunger for personal growth that I've only seen as a result of my relationship with Elaine. So I think that's probably because that mindset that, like, I wake up every day listening to, Jim Rohn or Joe Rogan or just something that inspires me. I do probably several hours per day of mindset work. And I think that's like the most powerful activity you can do. And is the thing that kind of makes me, the most successful in my life in terms of happiness or money or relationship. And I think that's because of Elaine.
Thank you both so much. I'm really grateful for this conversation, and I know that my listeners will be too. So thank you, Elaine, and thank you, Nick.
Thank you for having us. This was a blast, and certainly a super fun topic to talk about. I think you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head of kind of the passionless marriage that you just kind of go through,
Yep.
or this very passionate, energetic marriage. And I just love being able to give a little voice to this.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to the Intimate Marriage Podcast. For more information about Alexandra, her book, and her coaching services, go to theintimatemarriagepodcast.com.